Welcome back, everyone. My name is Ervis. I worked in SAP for over 10 years right now, mainly managing SAP projects. And in today's video, I want to talk about the 5 mistakes that SAP managers make. I see this common whether it's a billion-dollar company or a small company. I see this mistake happen a lot, especially with companies where their SAP practice is not up to industry standards. And I think if you identify 3 or 4 of these issues that you can identify that in your scenario, I think it's safe to say that your practice may not be with industry standards. So let's talk about the first practice. Treating a recruitment company as a support partner. I see this a ton of times. Companies, they go out to recruit SAP expertise for a period of time. So for a project or for... Now the problem with that is you're not building a healthy ecosystem. You are not, once they leave, their knowledge goes with them. Plus, it takes you a lot of time to find a contractor. So if you have a new project, let's say you're going to implement warehouse management, you have a new project. Now you're going to spend 2-3 months sourcing that consultant, interviewing, and you don't even know if this person is going to work out. So there's a lot at stake here by depending on the recruiters. Because what these recruitment companies are doing is they're just calling people and trying to find a match. They don't know, they don't have a track record for this person. Well, most of the time they don't. What can you do instead? You should work with an SAP support provider. So there are a lot of companies out there that they have a support package. So they might have 5-10 consultants that are covering a wide range of modules that are supporting maybe 5-10 different clients. So the benefit with them is you can go and get a contract, for example, 100 hours a month, and then in that contract you can get SD, MM, WM, finance, etc. Now this is beneficial because you don't have to have an SD person, an MM person, and warehouse management, finance person. Especially if you're a smaller company with a smaller budget, this is very helpful for you because it gives you access to a wider pool of resources without spending the big bucks. That's benefit number 1. The other benefit is you do not have to pay for a full-time person. The other benefit is because they have been supporting you for a long time, the knowledge stays. It might not be with your company, but it's with them. You can always pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, I need help. Now, usually the way they work is if they're working on another client, they still support the clients that they have right now. So it's not like they're going to move on to a new project. They'll still be available for you to call them. It might not be as accessible, but they'll be there for you to call them. Now, the last benefit that I could think of is accessibility. Now, let's say you have a new project. You're going to do a warehouse management, or you got to streamline your test cases. The importance of working with the support team is because now you can go and ask and say, hey, I need somebody for warehouse management for 3 months. And most of the time, that somebody is someone that is already supporting you on day to day. Now, this is a huge benefit because when that project ends, that person goes back into the support team. So you'll have access to that person again. They're not leaving to the next project, next client, next company. They're going to go back to the partner that you're dealing with, and they're going to go back to their support team. This is the biggest advantage. Now, why do I think this is a big? Because over time, people build a relationship. Why do I think this is important? Because when you're working with the same consulting team every year, you are adding a lot of value to the team because they're understanding how everyone works. They're getting a feel of each other, and by year 2, they should be working smoother. So if you're changing consultants every 6 months, depending on your project, you're not giving your internal team a chance to really connect with these people. Point number 2. Not having a good ecosystem and expertise levels. What do I mean by that is, A lot of companies, well-run SAP companies, they have the first level of support, which is end users or power users or global process owner, or I mean, call them whatever they want. But if a business user has a problem, they go to that person first. And then they have what's called a level 1 support. Usually that's like a service desk type of support, somebody that is helping them. Oh, I cannot print an invoice and things like that. I'm sure I've answered a lot of those in my time. And then you move into the level 2. Those are your juniors, right? Somebody that has maybe 2-3 years experience. They're very eager to learn. And you have the level 3, which are your seniors, the people that are really you can really depend on to get things done when it comes to new initiatives or if your SAP goes down. Often I see companies not having that level, and I think that's very, very costly to the company. And I made a separate video that talking about how inefficient that could be, because you do not want to have a senior person going and fixing or showing someone how to print an invoice. I mean, that's like going to the doctor's office and having the doctor call the insurance company and dealing with billing. That's going to be a broke doctor's office, and that's why you don't see that. That's why when you go to the doctor's office, you have the front desk, you have the nurse, and then you have the doctor. It's there not only functionally, but financially. You do not want the nurse to be dealing with paperwork either, because it's not cost effective. You want the nurse to be helping the doctor. The same thing applies in our case. We do not want our senior folks to be working on low level tasks. Now, when you have all seniors, somebody gotta be working on the low level task. And that's where things get expensive. Because these seniors, first of all, is gonna cost you a lot of money. Second of all, they are not going to be happy, because nobody wants to be in a senior level position and do lower level tasks. Believe me, I see this happening all the time. Alright, we move on to point number 3. Lack of process and control. When you go into a new organization, there are some questions that we could ask to evaluate whether they have a good process and good controls, or it's kind of like the wild, wild west and everybody does what they do. And for example, if transports accidentally made it to production in the last year or so, that probably means you don't have a good transport control process. But what I want to talk today is about training and knowledge and the whole ecosystem of the team. Every time you have a new project, it is important that the junior folks participate in that project, because they are helping the seniors with document test script preparation, and also the seniors are helping the juniors to train them. Going back to the point number 1, when you have that going on, there's a lot of things moving around. You gotta have a good control process of how do you release test scripts? How do you even come up with this test script? How do you identify the test scripts you need? How do you release them? How do you release transports? How do you come up with the documents? How do you make sure that the users got the right training documents? So you gotta have the right processes, right? Whether you sign off on it via an email, or you use Excel, or you use a testing tool, whatever that is, but you need to have a process. At the end of the day, before a project goes live, I think it should be reviewed by some sort of board or a group of people in the company that look at the documents and say, okay, do we have sufficient documents to release these changes? Because what's going to happen is, once you remove that, everybody moves on to a new project, and now you don't have sufficient document to support that. So the person coming right after you, they're going to struggle. They're not going to be happy. Done. All right, we move on to point number 4. Lack of understanding the tool that they're managing. In this case, SAP, or any SAP products. I cannot tell you how many times I see managers that coming from different backgrounds, like Salesforce, for example, which is great, it helps, but you need to understand that tool that you're managing. Why do I think that's important? I mean, first, you gotta understand the product. I mean, you have to. Second, you are dealing with a lot of folks and you're dealing with a lot of outside vendors. How do you know that that 5-minute problem, they're not selling it as a 50-hour service? Alright, so you may not be able to know exactly where do you need to go and click, how to create a sales order, but you should know whether or not they'll tell you it's going to take a month when it should only take 2 days. Now the other point is you should know, because not everybody is going to contribute the same in your team. And if you don't know how much effort everyone is putting in, you're not weighing everyone the same. In SAP, you got those folks who are highly technical, but they speak less. And then you have those folks like me who are not so technical, but they love to talk. You'll fall into that trap that you believe the talkers more than the doers. That's why it's important that you understand the basics of what you're managing. It's also important you understand it from a management perspective, right? Like, for example, if I told you, oh, you're gonna need to build a house for me, do you really know the sequence of activities that are gonna take place? Do you know that before you close the drywall, the inspector needs to come in and inspect the plumbing, electrical, and all that other stuff? The same thing applies in SAP. You gotta know the sequence of activities. If you don't, it's very difficult to understand all the connection between all the dependencies. Now, what are your options? I mean, there's a lot of training. I like Udemy. You can go in, you can watch a training SAP overview, or you can even watch a module, skip over. You don't need to listen to them on the car. The whole point of the exercise is you are just understanding what the concept is. Like I said earlier, you do not need to understand where do you need to click or how to do it. You're not going to be a consultant. But you should understand what is a sales order, what is the delivery, what is a billing. So when a consultant comes and tells you that it's going to take you 3 months, yeah, you can call them out on that and say, no, I think it shouldn't take more than 3 weeks. Number 5, not using proper tools. This is where inefficiency comes and kicks in and makes things not under control. For example, you have a lot of companies right now that are running testing, regression testing, and they have like 30 users participating, and they're still using email. Yep, they're still using email. They're still doing it. Now, that makes it very inefficient because that handshake that is taking place is very labor intensive, and what I usually see is people doing a lot of back and forth. What should be a 3-step process ends up being like 5 iterations because there isn't those tools in place to hold them accountable. Now, with that being said, is you gotta have the right process before you even think about the right tools. Like, if you don't have the test scripts ready, that's a problem. If you have integrated test scripts, that's a problem. A tool isn't going to solve that problem. I'm talking about if you have that ready and you're still using email, that's very inefficient. You want to look at tools that work and you're able to handshake with one another. All right, I had a lot of fun making this video. Let me know if you guys have any questions for me. I'd love to answer them.